Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Turning Point Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Lara, and I'm joined here once again by Lewin. How we doing, my friend? It's been a while.
It has been a while. I'm going good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. I'm excited to be here finally. This episode's been a long time coming. I say that to make it sound like we're doing something big this episode.
I was like, you're really hyping this up.
Yeah. I don't really know what this episode is. It's kind of this weird in-between episode because we've got, we've obviously still got a couple of Doctor Who themed episodes coming up.
Yep.
We got Ahsoka coming out next month. And obviously later in the year we've got the 60th anniversary. So right now is kind of this weird in-between time where there's nothing major really to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if The Witcher was any good, that'd be something we'd base the whole episode on, but we'll get to that, shall we?
Yeah, I'm keen to hear.
I'm keen, but it's actually been a while since we've last recorded too, because we recorded that Doctor Who episode in May, and it didn't come out until like late June. Like it took me a few weeks to edit that one, just for time period. So it's right now as of the time recording. It's currently the 30th of July, so it's the end of July basically.
Yeah.
So it's been about 2 months since we've last done a proper kind of like catch up and record one of these. So there's a lot of things to discuss, I'm sure. But, I've watched a few things. I've played a few things. So, a few things to talk about.
Yeah, I've seen a few things. I've been playing one thing consecutively, so I think I can get some mileage off it, but
That's Final Fantasy XVI, right?
that is the one, yes.
Yeah, when did that come out? That was like
That came out a
a
month
few
ago.
weeks. Yeah, wow. That's a lot of Final Fantasy 16.
I just have been very busy.
Yeah, I mean that's life though, right?
It is, right?
I've heard that game is quite divisive.
It has been, yeah.
Do you know what I hate about the Flash Lord?
But you liked it?
Yeah, I hate that I liked it. I hate that fact so much. It means I can't meme. I can't meme it anymore. It's not fun.
It was bound to happen.
Let me tell you though, the stuff that's shit in the Flash is shit. I'm sorry, but like the fucking Snyder cultists, like you know me, I like me a bit of Batman v Superman and Justice League, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not part of that crowd, you know what I mean? I think we're incredibly lucky that we got Justice League in the first place. But like I wasn't on that bandwagon of release the Snyder Cut. Like I was like, whatever. There's this whole thing going on at the moment with like the Snyder crowd on Twitter, and they're very much against James Gunn and whatever he's doing. But I will say one thing.
I can't wait. Sorry, yep.
And so they're defending the Flash like crazy, right?
Yeah.
They're going hard on defending the Flash. And I'm like, they're like even going so far to say that the CGI, like fucking Christopher Reeve and shit, like it doesn't look as bad as it did before. No, even in HD, it still looks fucking terrible. And they're like, yeah, but, like, the director of The Flash is like, yeah, but the visual effects are supposed to look bad because, like, we're seeing... I'm like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Like, just shut up. Like, you're just talking shit now.
We artistically tanked our movie for a vision. Fuck off.
But here's the thing, right, is I would say there is some wonky visual effects in that movie, but for the most part, the visual effects aren't too bad. It's more when he's in the weird fucking Speed Force time travel bubble that he's in, because the way they've kind of created how that visually looks, like it's just all digital humans. Like it really bothers me a lot that the last appearance of Henry Cavill's Superman we're ever gonna see is a moment of him in Justice League, but like it's CGI'd into this like CGI place full of digital people, and I'm just like, oh, why? Like, I haven't even seen Black Adam, right? I'm not going to watch that shit. But like, I would have been happy if the post-credit scene of that, which was meant to be him coming back, that was the last time we ever see him. I'm like, but instead, the Flash had to go and ruin it by making a CGI Henry Cavill that just pops up briefly. I was just like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit.
Witcher Season 4, take notes.
The movie itself isn't as bad as it like people are making it out it is on Twitter. Like, it really isn't. It's actually a somewhat decent movie.
Yeah.
But what is bad about it is bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, the CGI is bad. Let's just not try and defend it, alright? Like, it's bad.
To be fair, these are the same people who go over to Star Wars and pull the whole Dave Filoni's gonna retcon the entire sequel trilogy in the Disney Civil War, and you're like, do you actually understand a fucking thing about how TV or movies are made? That's not how that works.
Yeah. Like, I like Justice League a lot. I think that's a really good movie. I think that's actually the best out of his 3 movies, to be honest. The 3 DC movies he made. I think it's the best one. It is way longer than it needs to be, of course, but it's also like, what else is he gonna do? Like, when you give him more money to make a movie, finish his movie and go, you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Of course he's going to include everything in it. Like I said, I liked that movie, and I really hate the fact that I liked that movie because I was expecting it to be just really bad, and it wasn't. We've already kind of talked about like how like the things that are bad about it, like the CGI, and that like it's bad. Like, seeing it in HD doesn't make it any better. But I think is it the best version of the Flashpoint storyline? No, it's not. Like, if you want a good version of the Flashpoint storyline, go watch the animated movie, The Flashpoint Paradox. That's pretty good. But I think for what it does do it really well. I hate to say this, but Ezra Miller is really good in it.
That's what I've heard.
It's true, you know, look, credit where credit's due, alright?
They're a decent actor, they're just a really shit human.
Yeah, they're really good in this. They basically play the dual role in this as well. So they played, you know, the Barry Allen of present day. Because basically the way this storyline works is the traditional setup for Flashpoint. You know, he goes back in time to prevent his mother's death, which, you know, creates an alternate timeline. Yeah. Where people get this wrong is this movie is not a multiverse movie. People keep talking about this movie like it's a multiverse movie. And while they do bring in the multiverse element towards the end, the movie's not a multiverse movie. Which creates a problem, right? Why is Batman Michael Keaton in this film? Because the Flash didn't travel to a different multiverse. He just changed the timeline that they were in. But also, Bruce Wayne was born long before the time he went back to and changed, like, Bruce Wayne's a lot older than Barry Allen is in this universe. So why would the Flash going back in time to save his mother's death change the genetics of Bruce Wayne? Doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't make sense, right?
No.
Do you know how the film explains it?
How?
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. So, we have a scene where we meet Keaton, and he's like this old hermit that lives in Wayne Manor. He's not Batman anymore. The Batman of this universe retired. And so, like, he's this old man. He's got, like, long hair and a beard, and both Barrys, because the way this movie works is he travels back in time, and then as he's traveling to the future, he sees like this specter in the Speed Force, which then attacks him and sends him out a little too early. So he ends up coming back into a future, but he's not back in the present day. He's back when he himself was 18 years old. So that's why there's 2 Barrys in this film. And they did this in a really weird way, because you know how, like, in Justice League, the Flash is, like, this really obnoxious character?
Yeah.
Yeah, Barry 2 is way more obnoxious, and I like that this movie plays with that, because it's like, even the Flash is like, even like Barry One is like, wow, like you are too much, you know, like it's a lot. And I think Ezra does a great job with both of those roles because my God, is Barry 2 fucking annoying, and that's the point. But back to Batman. So they decide they need to go in this universe. Superman doesn't exist. Wonder Woman doesn't exist. Aquaman doesn't exist. Like, none of them exist. The only character that exists is Batman. And Zod comes to Earth. So I'm pretty sure it must be in 2013. Or whatever. Zod comes to Earth like he does in Man of Steel. But now there's no one to stop him. So the Flash, both Flashes, go to Bruce Wayne for help because he's Batman. Now, he's thinking he's going to meet Ben Affleck's Batman. Instead, it's Michael Keaton's Batman. And the way Michael Keaton explains how he's Keaton and not Affleck is he's got a bowl of spaghetti and he grabs like some uncooked spaghetti, right? Mm-hmm. And he puts the two bits of uncooked spaghetti next to each other and he's like, okay, so like, here's your timeline, right? And he's like, so when you traveled back in the past, you traveled to a point of convergence. And then he puts like the two bits of uncooked spaghetti on the top of each other, but then twists them so they're like crossed. And he's like, so what you've done is you've not just created a new future, you've created a new past. And I'm like,
that's not how time...
don't think that's how that works. But let's just roll with it, I guess.
Yeah, that's how time works and time travel.
But then it also foreshadows the end of the movie with the whole multiverse stuff, because then he's got his cooked spaghetti, and he's like, and if you keep messing with time, you end up with this. So that he pours like the fucking pasta sauce on it. He's just like, you end up with a mess, you know? And I'm like, okay. And then that kind of foreshadows the end of the movie, because the way the Flash movie kind of works is there is no way to defeat Zod. It doesn't matter what Batman and Supergirl do. They will get killed every single time. And so both Barrys, the way it happens is there's like this big fight, the big sequence happens, right?
Yeah.
And this was one of the scenes that was made fun of on Twitter because it's an out of context moment that's missing the like key bit of context to this moment. So people are like, oh, this Batman's an idiot. He just flies straight into Zod's ship and blows up. And it's like, yeah, but like the clip that was circulating around on Twitter is missing a very important bit of context in that scene, and that is when the Kryptonian ship shot his bat ship thing, Batwing, whatever, fucking, you know what I'm talking about. When it shot it, it broke and disabled the ejector seat system, so he couldn't eject from the ship. And the ship was going down, so he was going to die anyway. So he was like, in the movie, he just pilots the ship straight into Zod's ship. He doesn't know Zod's ship has shields, and he also can't eject. So it's meant to be like a heroic sacrifice kind of thing. Like, he's going down, he's going to die anyway. He might as well take one of them out. It's just really funny because then he just goes straight into the side of the ship, blows up and dies, and Zod's ship just has like this little shield and he's fine. So it's kind of funny. But anyway, so then Batman dies. So then the Flash is like, oh my god. And then Zod stabs Supergirl and kills her. So then they both decide to run back in time to change it. So they go back in time. Barry 1 realizes that this is a point of convergence, like his mother's death. And so we see that as Barry 2 keeps leaving the Speed Force to go back in time and change it. We see it from Barry 1's perspective. And this is what I'm talking about with all the digital humans. It looks really weird. But we see him keep going back and trying to change it, but getting the same result every time, right?
Yeah.
So now that that bit of context explained, let's go back to the bowl of spaghetti.
Yes, the mess.
Barry 2 keeps going back in time over and over and over again. He's causing the multiverse to collapse by doing so. And so that's where we have that end scene where we start to see all these different multiverses. You see all these different universes, and you see like Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater's Superman and Supergirl, and they're like kind of looking into the sky at this big crack, and you can see like the multiverse, like the whole multiverse is falling apart. So it's a thing.
Yeah. This is a...
It's a whole. It's a thing of spaghetti.
Don't be lasagna.
Exactly. So anyway, in this timeline, the events of Batman 89 and Batman Returns are canon to this timeline, which is why the director was saying that, like, it's set 30 years after Batman Returns or whatever. But, like, in the context of those movies, this doesn't happen. You know, like, this does not happen. In the same way the Joel Schumacher movies are sequels to the Tim Burton films, but, like, they're not canon to Tim Burton's films.
It's every Terminator sequel ever.
And I will say the Batcave is pretty much, after rewatching Batman 89 last night, the Batcave is pretty much 1-for-1 to how it originally looked in Batman 89. I also like Keaton in this movie. He's really good in this movie. It's like they've kind of taken Batman 89, the kind of aesthetic, and they've just kind of modernized it a little bit, but it's still very clearly like, you know, old kind of techie Batman. They actually, the film kind of makes fun of it a little bit, like that he's using like outdated technology to do things. So I thought that was kind of cool.
So all around a kind of clusterfuck of a movie, but worth watching.
It's a clusterfuck of a movie, but I think from a story perspective, I think, you know, it hits the emotional beats that it needs to hit to make that kind of part where he does go back in time to restore the timeline. It kind of it goes back and it allows that emotional beat to hit properly, which I think is why I'm saying I like the movie, because I think the movie did the work. We get the worst fucking costumes I've ever seen. We get some really bad CGI. But I think there's a lot of great story beats in there. You know, I think there's some great stuff with Keaton. There's great stuff with Supergirl. Like, overall, I think there's a lot of good stuff. I think where the movie really falls apart is the multiverse stuff. I feel like didn't make sense to me. Like, it didn't make sense as to why it needed to be in the movie. It does nothing to serve the story at all. Like, it just happened. And I'm not even kidding when I say it just happens. Like, the scene that it's a part of has very little to do with it actually being in the movie. Like, 1 minute they're just in the Speed Force and they're like, oh, you know, you're tearing the fabric of reality apart or whatever. And like, oh, you know, and then there's that whole like kind of confrontation and the realization that no matter what they do, they can't change what happens. And then the next second, all of a sudden, there's this, like, really dodgy CGI shot of, like, fucking Superman, and then it goes through and you see the other Superman, and then you see Nick Cage, and I'm just like, I'm watching it, I'm like, what does this have to do with anything?
Did it serve as a good finale to an entire universe of film?
No. I will say I did like there's a scene with Ben Affleck and Barry that's really good. I think the scene with... Because Wonder Woman has a cameo in this as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's such a weirdly written scene. It's like one of those like really like cringe MCU humor type scenes. Batman and the bad guy are tangled up in the fucking lasso of truth. And like Batman's just saying all these like funny things, and it's just like, this is just so out of character. Like Barry tries to untangle the lasso and gets caught in obviously it's truth, and is like, I know what sex is, I've just never experienced it. And I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, why is this in the movie? You know, like, and then Wonder Woman just fucks off. She's just like, okay, well, good seeing you, bye.
Okay.
And then Barry's like, oh, but the thing about the sex was I wasn't paying. And then Batman's just like, just probably best you just drop it. Just leave
Stop.
it. And I'm like, oh, please stop. Like, I was just like, please stop with this. I can't let this be Ben Affleck's final appearance. This is fucking terrible. You know what's great, though? That actually whole opening sequence with him isn't actually that bad. It's just the end bit with the awkward humor with Wonder Woman that just completely ruins it. It's just like so unnecessary. And it's also really difficult to take Wonder Woman seriously because whenever she appears, her theme starts playing. You know, her really
I know the one,
theme from those movies. Yeah, so like Batman's like hanging off on the side of this bridge with the bad guy, and then you just get the and it's just like Wonder Woman like standing at the top of the bridge being like, Oh, hello. I'm Wonder Woman. And like I previously said, Supergirl's really good for like the 10 minutes she's in the movie.
That's a bit
Yeah, it's
disappointing.
pretty. She's not in it that much. She's not in it that much. So yeah, that's a movie I've watched. I understand you've been to the cinemas recently to watch a movie.
I have been to the good old theatre recently to watch a movie. One of my partner to watch the latest hit rave Barbie.
How was that?
Fucking fantastic. Personally, I loved it. Barbie is an exact perfect movie for me due to the fact that it doesn't A, take itself seriously, B, it has an actual decent message to spread that many people have gone wrong so far.
Of course they
Yeah,
have.
it's the internet. And C, it doesn't have fucking end of the world stakes or anything. It's not massive in it's not epic in scale. It's just a down to earth, fun, wholesome film
About Barbie and Ken.
about Barbie and Ken and Ken and Ken and so many other Kens.
And so many other Barbies.
There was a lot of others. I would highly recommend just watching it. It's you don't feel like you wasted your time watching it. You, overall, if you don't have a stick up your ass about minutely having like the patriarchy insulted, the message I got was that the current view of masculinity is bad for both sides, as well as it's bad to completely flip the script and make the world a female dominated. The actual endgame message is you don't have to be a part of this massive, like, men don't have to rule everything, but also it's the expectations put on men at the same time are equally as bad as they are for women, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where, there's a view where men have to be tough, they have to be able to hold an image, they have to not cry, they have to have a girlfriend, a partner, whatever. They can't just be themselves. They they have to be a part of the bigger picture. And the same thing is done on the flip side with women. It addresses it on both gender fronts, and at the end kind of shows we're a long way off from equality or normalizing, and it's just a good message. I can't articulate it well enough. Look, in the end, toxic masculinity is bad for fucking everyone. The same way toxic feminism is bad for everyone. You're just not gonna win. You need to hit the middle ground, and that's kind of where I feel the movie goes. But it also has an absolute rock and power ballad about Ken just being Ken, and that's enough to make the whole movie. Shigawa was fun in it. You did chuck me a message about that.
I did,
He
yes.
wasn't a massive part, and for like the first half of the movie, he practically doesn't speak at all. He's just always in the background. But it's weird because when he does speak, he doesn't. I'm so used to his interview voice or his sex education voice. He doesn't have that at all. It's a kind of deeper, almost American voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's fucking really weird to hear. Emma Mackey doesn't show up all that much. She's like there for 30 seconds, I think. Um, but she's still fun. It's fun to see her and Shigawa on screen together. It's just like I just want to be. Oh, Shigawa's Ken. It's just like I just want to be with my Barbie, and
Yeah.
it's Emma Mackey who is Shigawa's Barbie.
Right. So they're like the paired ones.
I'm like, oh, that's really cute. That was fucking intentional. And of course, Adam from Sex Education is fun in the movie as well. He doesn't do much, but he's just an intern at Hasbro at Mattel,
All
who's
right.
just like here's all the stakes going on, and then he gets dragged along for the ride.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
Oh, it sounds like a good movie, and like I mean, what I actually really like about what I've heard and seen about that movie as well is that a lot of it is practical effects and like practical sets. And the bit that I've seen, it's in the trailers where they're like going on their like journey or whatever, and it's like them in the center of the screen with like the background and the foreground. Like that's all practical done. I don't know if you've seen the behind the Barbie cars kind of like mounted on this set, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like old school filmmaking. It's like the back, it's not a projector, it's not anything, it's an actual physical
Like those rolling.
yeah. And then also the foreground is like rolling along, and there's like these little like shrubs, these like plastic shrubs sort of looking things that like kind of fold out as it rolls around and then fold back in as it keeps rolling. Something like that whole stuff in the movie was done practically. Well, the thing is that about this movie is that it has an indie feel to it. It feels like an indie movie. You know, it doesn't feel like a big studio movie.
Yeah.
You know, like that's just the vibe I've gotten from every bit of it I've seen, the trailers, everything. Like it feels really indie.
Margot Robbie bought Ryan Gosling a gift for every day of filming.
Yeah.
And they were all horse or I remember one of them was always horse related, and she kept it up for the entire shoot, where he was just like, "This is gonna have to give eventually. You can only give me so much," and apparently she pulled through.
Oh, cool. Is there anything else you want to add on to that, or?
Nah, not really. Just I would recommend.
Yeah, there you go. What else you been up to lately?
Last we spoke, I think I was in the middle of Final Fantasy III in my grand lead up to Final Fantasy XVI. You can probably guess, as we all estimated on that podcast.
You obviously didn't play the like fucking 20 games that you need to play. Yep.
I finished 3, and then I managed to finish 4 literally the night before 16 came out. Which is okay, because I think those are all the medieval ones, and that's kind of the tone I wanted to emulate, since 16 is the first medieval one in a decent long time, given that, you know, as you know from playing Final Fantasy 13 and 7 and things, it's always like not a cyberpunk, but a steampunky kind of weird mismatch.
Yeah, it kind of goes in a more sci-fi
direction.
Sci-fi fantasy,
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, like, playing Final Fantasy 13, like, it's still very fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. So I really just wanted to play the games that were truly medievalish in tone.
Yeah.
And from what I gather, I think 5 would have been the last of those. 6 is steampunk. So I feel like I at least accomplished a decent amount. In the end, it surprised me a lot, because I came out with Final Fantasy IV actually being my favourite Final Fantasy game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't expect it at all. I thought it would be 15. Good characters. I actually gave a shit about the story. The story existed. You know, just things that should exist in gaming. But no, I moved straight from Final Fantasy IV to Final Fantasy 16, and that's primarily what I've been doing since then. For the last month.
I've seen on the interwebs that is quite the divisive game amongst the Final Fantasy fan base, it seems.
Personally, okay, it is currently my favourite Final Fantasy game. It dethroned 4 very quickly. 16, I can see why people have issues with it, because there's a lot of spectacle and epicness that kind of blinds you to the problems with the game, where you're too focused on like the epic Titan v Titan battles. A large feature of the game is the main character and a bunch of villains and things all have the power to turn into icons, or in other Final Fantasy games they're like summons, like Shiva, Titan, all that. Those fights and everything, between the music, the graphics, the battle, fucking epic. It is such a spectacle to behold in a game, and you're mainly focused on that. But when you get down to the dark and gritty of it, there's not a lot of game there. You occasionally get some side quests where you go to what areas you've been, you talk to someone, kill some monsters, go back. The side quests aren't good. Um, they really only get a bit better when you start getting like character moments for events that have happened, but they're few and far between. It's just a lot of walking places sometimes, and the maps aren't all that open or anything. So the big draw is the characters and the story. And so I can see why, if you're not grabbed by that, you will think this is a bad game.
It's a very political story.
It's
And I
very
don't mean that in like a woke way. I mean like in terms of like the internal politics of the world the story exists
yes,
in. It's a very like political story.
it's very Game of Thrones is the one I commonly see people draw comparison to. It's, your world empires all vying for power over different regions. It is very different from any other Final Fantasy I have played. Bar maybe Final Fantasy 2, I think, is the closest gets the feel.
I think the other reason why it's also like being divisive is of course because this is the first
Action RPG kind of.
kind of hack and slash type game. Like there's no real, because even though like Final Fantasy VII, remake has the real time, it is
Seven's
still
a hybrid. It's turn based still.
yeah, it's still got that turn based element where this game doesn't have that at all. It's action game,
Yeah.
and I know that's why it's that's another reason why it's very divisive among people as well, is because to a lot of people that I've, at least from the commentary that I've seen, a lot of people are like, this game just isn't Final Fantasy.
I think 7, if you're looking for classic Final Fantasy, 7 Remake is probably the best system you're going to get nowadays. 16 does it very differently, but it has a lot of options, but it doesn't really do things differently no matter what you choose. Clive is by far my favorite Final Fantasy protagonist.
And he's the only protagonist of this, right? Like, there's
He
no...
is. Like, you have party members who pop in from time to time, nothing you can control. The supporting cast are all fantastic, though. Between your childhood friend Jill, you've met a couple of Sids now.
Yeah, I've heard that's like a recurring thing in Final Fantasy. There's like a Sid
Every
pop.
single game has a Sid. Every character is perfectly realized so far. The world is decently realized. It doesn't really do any of those like secret passages where you find a fucking secret boss. Like if you go out of your way in 7 Remake to do the fighting arena, and next thing you know, you're fighting Hell House.
Hell House, yep.
It doesn't really do that.
Classic.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else you've been doing? Anything else you wanna...
What has been going on? Finished. It's not a massive update, but I finished 80 to 90% of season 8 of Doctor Who. The John Pertwee series. Which I did message you about 2 serials in, and I'm now 5 serials in. I just find it absolutely hilarious the Master has been in every fucking story.
Is this the series? Is this the one where it's like the first time the Doctor goes off-world, the colony in space? Is that
Yes,
this season?
that is the one.
I've seen that story so many times because there was a time where like the only 2 John Pertwee stories I had was Colony in Space and the Time Monster, or whatever the fuck it's called, the Time Warrior. I don't know whichever one's the Time Monster. I've got them both there. I can see them.
Colony in Space, for me, was the perfect example of Classic Who really needed to learn how to moderate episode count. It didn't need to be a 6-episode story. I was trying to watch it all in one go, and by story, like, I was sick the weekend I was watching it. By episode 5, I was actively falling asleep, and I was like, please. I woke up and the Master was escaping, and I'm like, what? What is happening? Because I remember the beginning of the episode where the Time Lords are like, let's send the Doctor in. And then I was like, oh yeah, so high Time Lord stakes. And then by episode 3, I'd forgotten completely about that part. I was like, is this the first time I'm not going to see the Master this season? Is this the break? And then the very next episode, fucking the adjudicator comes to the colony, and it's Delgado, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Not again.
And I already know from the first Eighth Doctor novel that the Master is the main priest bad guy in The Daemons, which is the next serial.
I think it's like a full season there where the Master's just like in every episode. Then kind of, I think in the couple of seasons afterwards, he only appears like here and there, I think.
I appreciate for his first season, but I find it weird that they went all in on it when they've been so hesitant to
every single story.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been enjoying season 8. John Pertwee really personally has actually dropped in my estimations of Doctors, honestly. My least favourite used to be just, I think it was Patrick Troughton for a time, or Colin Baker than Patrick Troughton, but Colin Baker's such a sweetheart. I just fucking can't. John Pertwee just doesn't really do it for me as the Doctor. He has a few nice moments, but the more I watch, the more I'm like, you don't really stick out to me the same way Hartnell and Troughton did.
I know, I like him, but I think he's very much like they were trying to take the Doctor in a different direction as a character when he was kind of the Doctor. You know, he's the Doctor that likes violence.
He was the first one to go all in. Good old Venusian Aikido or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He's also just really abrasive, like way before Colin Baker was. And I get it, he's been stuck on Earth. Fair enough. I would be pissed too if I was exiled, but sometimes he's just way too much of an ass.
So, Lord, I've got a few things I want to just briefly talk about. There's a few more things I've been doing. It hasn't all been The Flash.
Okay.
But I got a little something different for you. So back at the start of June, on June 9th, I went to my first ever live gig.
Yes.
It was very exciting for me because there's only really a few like bands and things that I would actually want to see live, because I'm not like a super big fan of live music, you know? Like, it's alright, but like, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But one of those groups, I was very excited to see these people live, was Babymetal from Japan. They came over, and this was their first Australian tour. They performed in Brisbane, in Sydney, and in Melbourne. It was fucking awesome, let me tell you that. I love Babymetal. I love Babymetal a lot. And so to actually see them live, and yeah, it's about 5,000 people, and it was a sold out show.
Nice.
So they fucking filled that place, which is good because that means that, you know, if like Babymetal are getting sold out shows on their first tour here, then that means there's more incentive for them to come back. Yeah. And they got a new album out as well this year called The Other One. And yeah, we went to that concert and it was very loud.
Yep.
And I was very dehydrated by the end of the night. I had a headache, my ears were hurting and were ringing, and I was very dehydrated and I needed water, but I was also like, I'm not fucking buying water here. Jesus Christ, it's expensive. So, but that didn't stop me from having a really good time, and I got some clips on my phone, and some absolute highlights were when they played like one of my favorite songs, which is called BXMXC. That was fun. I like that song a lot. You know, seeing them live is like, it's a whole thing, you know?
Yeah, I getcha.
Yeah.
I've been to many live performances in my life.
I don't know. It was just good. I enjoyed it. My first live gig, and like, yeah, what better than like my favorite kawaii metal band, you know?
Yeah.
We had like the show kind of ended with the main song that they always sing kind of towards the end of the show. And then obviously, you know, that's not the end of the show because they want you, the encore's coming up. And then we all started singing, and I don't know what the context of this is. Like, to me, it was just this most random thing. I don't know if there's like some kind of context to it or whatever, because yeah, it was just random to me, but it was funny. We all started singing "Hey Baby." Yeah, you know, like the "Hey Baby," who, huh?
Okay,
you know, we were just all singing that, and I turned to my friend who I was at the concert with, and I'm like, I guess this is what we're doing now. You know, like, this is it. So we started singing that, and we just kept singing that on repeat until the lights, because obviously the show's not ended because the lights didn't come back on when the show ended. So we just kept singing that until the stage lights came back on, and then we're like, yes, it's back. And then they played one of their new songs, and then they played another song for their final, one of their kind of songs that they usually end on, and it was just cool. It was just cool. It was the emotions I felt that night were very real.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say. It was a very moving, emotional experience.
I completely get it, having gone to, again, several live action concerts.
As opposed to animated ones.
Yes, I've granted those exist, so.
But yeah, so I did that. So I thought that, that's been like nearly 2 months since I did that. But I thought that'd be like a little fun, like slightly different thing to talk about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
On the show. Yeah, that was fun. Other than that, I did want to talk briefly. I've been watching The Witcher Season 3, Lewin.
I'm sorry.
It was certainly an experience. I don't want to really go too in depth because, to be really honest with you, there really isn't that much to talk about with The Witcher Season 3. Obviously, this is Henry Cavill's final season.
Yep.
And this whole bullshit that they were saying about him going out in like a heroic way, and it's like a really great heroic send-off. I'm like, what are you talking about? The final 2 episodes, he's injured, like really injured for most of it, and he's barely in the final 2 episodes. So I'm just like, what are you talking about?
Great.
So this season, I mean, look, let's talk positives. This season, I mean, the cast is great as always. Like, I think, I really think this season as well. Like, I think, Yennefer, Ciri, and Geralt, I think they've all finally come into their own in these roles. I think they're all great, and like the cast as a whole, like it's one thing I've always said about The Witcher is the cast as a whole is really good. This season actually adapts the books.
Crazy.
So there's that. I know it's a weird concept, but they actually do it. I do believe there is a lot, from what I understand from a lot of what Witcher YouTubers are saying, because obviously I haven't reached this point of the books yet either.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's a lot of original stuff this season, but like the main kind of plot beats are taken from the books, and like the big event that this whole season is based around is directly from the books. So that's good. That's a plus. We got a bit of book action in there, which is always good.
Yeah.
That has created a bit of an issue though.
Yeah.
You see, for this season, Lewin, to tell the story that it needed to tell, it had to spend the first few episodes getting all the characters back on track to be able to tell that story after season 2 completely derailed all of the character storylines. I'll give them credit, the actors do a really good job at selling it, I'm gonna say, but this season has to do some fucking legwork to try and make that Ciri Yennefer mother-daughter relationship real. Season 3 kind of just starts, and we're just supposed to believe that that's the relationship that they have, right. And they try really hard to make you believe it, but narratively it's not a relationship that is earned whatsoever, because the show spent the whole last season completely derailing Yennefer as a character. So now they've got to... So that storyline just... Like, that relationship couldn't form properly. And so now they're trying to rush it. So when they get to the later part of the season, the characters are where they need to be. Let's just say there's a lot of writing gymnastics going on to try and get everyone to where they need to be.
Kind of like that Rise of Skywalker moment where it desperately didn't want The Last Jedi to happen. So... It's
very much backtracking on everything.
Yep.
Yeah, so in Season 2, Yennefer was going to... Yennefer has a whole storyline in Season 2 that just isn't in the books at all. And that's where she loses her powers and she's trying to get her magic back. And she's literally going to sacrifice Ciri to that fucking demon thing, witch thing, so she could get her powers back. So the whole first episode of this season is just... Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri traveling because they're trying to keep Ciri hidden because everyone's looking for Ciri, especially Amir is looking for Ciri. And the whole first episode is just the trio going from place to place on the run. And Geralt and Yennefer do not talk to each other at all. Instead, they only communicate through Yennefer leaving letters to Geralt, which Geralt reads, but then also just doesn't respond to in any way. And like, it's literally the whole episode is just them not talking to each other, but it's like, it's meant to kind of be like Yennefer trying to get forgiveness from Geralt or whatever. But all the time, like, they keep cutting to shots of Yennefer and Ciri just like having a good time and bonding and shit, while Geralt just like broods in the distance. So anyway, yeah, a lot of the first part of the season is a lot of that. It's a lot of like just trying to get everyone back on track so they can actually tell the story that they're meant to tell. So the big event of this season is this kind of like, it's like a gathering. This is an event that's in the books, but it's like the gathering of the kind of all the kind of different parts of the continent kind of gathering together at Themyscira. They make a weird choice to age up King... Is it Radovid? I don't know. He's king by the time of The Witcher 3. That's the only reason why I know the name. But in this series, he's not the king yet. But they age him up. In the books, he's meant to be like 11 or 12 years old at this point in time. But they age him up to being like mid-20s or whatever. And you might go, oh, that's, you know, whatever. But the reason why they age him up is so they can do this weird romance storyline with Yaskia.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that. Because they aged him up, but he also still just acts like a child. Like, a lot of his dialogue is very childish. I don't know, it's very weird. Thankfully, that doesn't last very long because he also betrays Yaskia as well. Yaskia's like, no, fuck you. But, like, it's weird. I'm gonna be real with you. That was certainly a choice. Let's just say that. But yeah, this big event happens, and a lot of episode 5, which is like the mid-season finale, is this kind of like ball at Themyscira. And it's like you're seeing the ball play out over the course of the night. You're seeing it from various different perspectives. So, okay. Like, you start from, like, Geralt and Yennefer's perspective, but then you'll kind of shift around to the different characters. So it's a lot of, like, you see the same events kind of happen from different perspectives. Like, you'll see one event happen, but then it will cut to Geralt having a conversation with someone else, and you'll get to see their conversation, while the last time we saw the events, it was focused on the other stuff. And then, anyway, that leads to them figuring out that something's going on and, like, this is all going to turn to shit.
Machinations are afoot.
And then we get episode 6.
Okay.
Fucking banger episode.
Oh, okay.
Loved it. Loved it. Very good. This is the episode where shit hits the fan. This is the episode where, if you're keeping track of the politics of the Witcher world, fucking hell, so much shit happens in this episode. It's crazy, but this is basically where that whole ball situation turns to complete shit. And yeah, everything kind of like all the politics build up of the previous seasons and like the politics build up in the book all come to this point. Like, this is the point where just everything, the entire status quo of the continent changes forever. And it's a huge episode. There's a lot of action, a lot of betrayal, a lot of drama. Tissaia, we finally get to see Tissaia in full fucking beast witch mode, and it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, there's this whole bit where, like, she's up on the tower and she's, like, performing this, like, lightning spell, which is, like, really, like, this is, like, a forbidden spell, and, like, she just launches lightning into, like, the fucking hall and just, like, shocking everyone, and it's, like, it's really good shit. Geralt finds Vilgefortz, and then so they have a fight. Geralt gets absolutely fucking wrecked, by the way. Like, fucked. Like, this is why he's out of commission for, like, 2 episodes after this, because he just gets fucked. And then Ciri ends up at one of the pillars and ends up transported to another world. And so, like, yeah, it's a big episode. It's a fucking great episode. And I remember watching it the other night and I was just like, oh, this is great. This is good stuff. You know, like, if the rest of the season is like this episode, that first half of the season where it had to spend so much time working on the characters,
Will it be worth it?
and not in a good way, it'll be worth it. And then the rest of the season happened after that.
Didn't stick the landing.
Look, I think episode 7 is a good episode for Ciri, because it's mostly focused on Ciri, because she's in this other world. Geralt's barely in it. He has, like, one scene, I think, maybe 2 scenes. Like, the dude's fucked. Like, his spine's broken, his fucking leg's fucked. Like, my guy's seen some shit. Let's just say that. He's not having a good time right now. For Ciri, I think it's a really good character episode that kind of focuses on her trauma as a character, and it's good stuff for her, but, like, it's a whole episode, you know? Like, it's a whole episode of it. And, yeah, I don't know. And then we get episode 8, the finale. Geralt's still fucked in the finale. Most of the last episode focuses on Yennefer and kind of Geralt recovering.
Yeah.
Because word has it that so Yennefer's trying to unite the remaining magicians who aren't dead, trying to unite everyone, while Geralt's slowly he's being very stubborn, because they're literally telling him, like, you are fucked. You cannot go after Ciri. And, like, Yaski's like, don't even bother trying to tell him. Like, there is nothing that is going to stop Geralt from finding his daughter. And so, like, Geralt's very stubborn in this episode, because he's like, dude is, like, fucking got, like, a leg brace. He's fucked, but he's still trying to pick up a sword and, like, practice his fighting. And there's, like, this whole scene with him just, like, very slowly moving his sword, like, practicing, like, sword moves or whatever. And he's, like, doing it really slowly, and it's just Henry Cavill just, like, just grunting. But eventually Yennefer reunites with him, and Yennefer saves the day by using magic to fix him, and he's all good now. And then we get the very last amazing Henry Cavill action scene as Geralt. Fucking great. Good stuff. But the whole reason he's leaving is because there's word that they've captured Ciri, and Ciri's on her way to Emir, which turns out not to be correct, because there's a girl who, in this season, there's a whole storyline with a girl who looks kind of like Ciri, but she's also been implanted with all of Ciri's memories somehow, so she thinks she's Ciri. Okay. Turns out that's the girl they captured, and the real Ciri is actually off with some fucking pirates.
The real Ciri was the friends we made all along.
And so they encounter a checkpoint, kind of like a border checkpoint with all of like Amir's soldiers. And so they go through the checkpoint, but then on the other side of the checkpoint, they're on their way through. So it's like him, a random lady from like the tribe that he was at, and Jaskier, and they're all on their way. They're gonna go find Ciri, because Yennefer can't join them because she's off doing her own thing. So like he's off, and then they don't let this family through because they don't have enough money, and so Geralt just like grabs his sword and just like fucking goes at all the soldiers, and he's like, it's literally just an amazing action set piece of like 15 soldiers just going up against Geralt, and he's just like fucking holding his own, hacking him down. It's good times. Jaskier gets involved, kind of. It's great.
I guess he smashes a loot over someone's head.
No, he like picks up a sword at one point, I think. I can't remember what he does, but he does something. But it's mostly Geralt that finishes the guy off. And then, yeah, Geralt kills everyone there except one guy, the first guy he attacked, who he just started punching. And then we get the final Henry Cavill shot, which is just depressing. It's him getting into the horse, and then him and Jaskier and this third random woman walking off into the fog, and you just see, like, the back of them from a distance walking into the fog, and that's the last you're ever going to see of Henry Cavill.
When next we meet, it will be Liam Hemsworth.
I don't know, I thought episode 6 was so good, and 7 and 8 I just didn't like, and obviously this was made probably not with the intention of it being Henry Cavill's final couple of episodes, but it's just he's just not there. You know, like he's barely in it for the final 2 episodes, and it focuses on Ciri and Yennefer, which, what a surprise, that's what this show focuses on. And like, I get Ciri is meant to be the main character in the books, I understand that, but like, the show it's called The Witcher. The books aren't called The Witcher. The show's called The Witcher. It's kind of, yeah, it was kind of a disappointing last couple of episodes, but
I've only seen, outside of what you've just told me, I've only seen two things on The Witcher season 3. The first was the showrunner saying that she was annoyed, or the writer saying she was annoyed by Henry Cavill because he was very too enthusiastic about the role. And the other one was somebody saying that the casting for Yennefer was to challenge standards of beauty.
they're straight up just calling Yennefer, like, they're calling the actress ugly, and that's why they cast her. And I'm like, what are you talking about, for one?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, have you seen
she's
Yennefer
not
in
at
this
all
show?
ugly.
I mean, like, what the fuck is going on with this show, man? Like, what's happened? Like, at some point in time, just something's happened. Because I remember back when season 1 came out, like, the show had so much promotion behind it. Like, it was a big deal when season 1 of The Witcher came out back in 2019. It was, like, such a big deal, and, like, Lauren, the showrunner, was, like, in all the press and doing press interviews and talking about how amazing the books are, and, you know, how it's all about bringing the books and staying faithful to the books, and, you know, talking about how amazing Henry Cavill is, and, like, he's just so great for the role and all that. Like, it was all this thing. And then now, all of a sudden, like, season 3, like, Henry Cavill barely promoted this season. I think he did a thing talking about, like, the stunt choreography of one of the scenes. And I think he was at the premiere. And that was about it. You go online and you try to find a cast interview promoting season 3 that has Henry Cavill in it. You probably won't find it. And it's also this, like, weird vibe, because Lauren, all of a sudden, the showrunner, who was very heavily in all the press for season 1 and 2, all of a sudden has disappeared from things. You know, like, she's not getting interviewed anymore. She's not at the press. It's really weird why she's just disappeared. But then there's, like, this weird vibe with the cast, like every member of the cast was pretty much asked what they thought about Liam Hemsworth for season 4.
Yes, I read that.
I sent you a text saying this because I saw it. I'm like, they all beat for beat said, like, word for word, almost said the exact same response. I'm just like, this is weird. Like, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but, like, I know the writing staff did change between season 1 and 2, and I know some of the producers changed and things, but, like, it's such a weird vibe right now, and I don't know. I don't think this show's gonna survive. I'm gonna be real. I think and I think they know it as well. I think they know that they've really fucked up with this show because they're shooting season 4 and 5 back to back.
That always goes well.
Which says to me that they know that it's gonna be the last seasons. That they're not gonna be able to continue it. So it seems like I have a very strong feeling season 4 and 5 are going to try very quickly rush through the rest of the Witcher story, assuming they bother to do that. Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's just weird. Like, I don't think the cast have anything negative to say about Henry Cavill, because it's not them that are saying all the weird shit. It's other people. You know, it's other people involved in the show that are saying really weird things. Like, yeah, there was that, like, the writer or someone who was trying to, like, talk about how, like, you know, like, trying to say that, like, Henry Cavill was very toxic on set and like that, and then, like, there was this whole thing, and then they came out and were like, no, I was just lying about that. Like, it's like, why would you say any of that if it's not true? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's unfortunate. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only way to categorize it.
Yeah, so will I watch season 4? Honestly, it'll really depend on the trailer. I think the trailer's gonna have to really sell me on it, because otherwise I'm just not gonna bother. I don't think.
I'm barely bothering with the third season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's such a damn shame too, because like, and the fact that like you pointed this out, no one's talking about it. Like, you go back a few years ago, right? Season 1 came out. What was everywhere? Toss a coin to your Witcher. Everywhere.
Yeah.
You go anywhere online and you couldn't escape that fucking song. Everyone was talking about The Witcher. It was the big thing. It was the next Game of Thrones. No one cares now. No one's talking about it. No one gives a shit. However, I will say this about Season 3. I don't think Season 3 had anything in it that would make me go, that's why Henry Cavill left. Like, you know, I was expecting it to be a complete shit show. It wasn't. There was not anything in this season where I was like, wow, I could see that being the reason why he was probably like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think a lot of why he didn't want to do it was a lot more behind the scenes type stuff rather than season 3. Like, I know he wasn't happy with season 2,
Yeah.
but like season 3 is kind of a course correction. I think it's a lot more behind the scenes stuff. I think the production of this show is, I think there's a lot of weird shit going on.
Very strange the way everyone decided to air the dirty laundry. Season 2 was a shit show writing wise, and the only way they were gonna get marketing for season 3 at all was everything that's happened. I genuinely think season 3, whilst not as big of a flop, would have passed under the bridge just as much as it already had they not announced anything, and that's why they tried it.
But I think Henry Cavill, like, announcing that he's leaving the show even like before the first trailers for season 3 had come out, I think that just did irreparable damage, because like most people are going to be like, well, why bother tuning in? Like, why should we watch this season? Because you're just going to replace the main character with someone else, and like, you know, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think season 4 is going to have to do a lot to sell me on it. I think we'll see. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say entirely no, because I also am like genuinely curious as to how this is gonna go, but at the same time I'm not like invested. I'm not like, oh, I need to watch that, you know.
Yeah.
There's a new Star Trek game that came out, Lewin.
I heard you mention it earlier. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's called Star Trek Resurgence, and it's made by whoever it's made by. It's made by a team of former Telltale devs and writers. So as you can tell, like, being former Telltale devs, it is very much a narrative-based kind of like point-and-click almost story game. So it's very much, it's a Telltale game. It's a Telltale game without the name Telltale. But this is, of course, based around the Star Trek franchise, and it's set during the very specific. It's set post Star Trek Nemesis, so it's set in the kind of next generation, Star Trek Voyager, Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not original series, but it's also not far in the future like Star Trek Picard and whatnot is, and it's also not like whatever the fuck Star Trek Discovery is meant to be. It's very much classic Star Trek, right? Like, we're talking 90s Star Trek, which in my view is the best Star Trek.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's very much like a classic Star Trek experience, and it's very much a classic Star Trek story. Like, it's... What this game is rough. I just want to point this out. As a game, it is rough. It is rough.
It's pretty obvious it's their first...
It's very obvious it's a studio first game, yeah. It's very rough around the edges. It has technical issues. It's weird because like there's a lot of other issues with the game, like the characters are lit all the time by these lights. There's like a light behind them and a light in front of them, and like there's like one part of the game where you're in kind of like a foggy, smoky area, and you can see the lights through the fog shining, like these artificial lights through the fog shining on the characters. It's kind of funny. So yeah, as a game, it's not great, but as a Star Trek experience, it is amazing. It is exactly how I remember Star Trek used to be when I was watching Star Trek Voyager, watching Next Generation, like that kind of era of my life back in the day. That wasn't even in the 90s, by the way. That was like 10 years ago, by the way, from where we are now. But like that era of my life, watching those Star Trek, you know, the Next Generation Star Trek films and that kind of whole era, that's what this is bringing back to life. And to me, that's just proper Star Trek. Like, this is what Star Trek's meant to be. And it's just a really good story. There's a lot of politics, which is great. But then it's kind of like the politics are kind of like the first part of the game, and it's kind of a cover up for like the larger story that's being told here. And it's a really good story, and like the decisions you make as you play as two characters. You play as First Officer Jara Rydek, and you play as Petty Officer fucking whatever his name is. And like he's kind of like an engineer, while then you're playing the First Officer, so you kind of get the perspectives of two very different levels. And yeah, it's great just making like all these decisions. Like in the first like hour alone, like I had to make some pretty intense decisions as the First Officer, Jara, while the captain was off on the ship, and it was some good stuff. Like there's a lot of good scenes, a lot of good decision making. The game's long too. Like I don't know exactly how long it is, but I felt like I was playing it forever. Like it felt like it just kept going. But it's broken up into chapters, so like each chapter's like about 10-15 minutes. So I kind of played it on the Steam Deck, so I kind of just like picked it up, played it for like 10 minutes, and then, you know, I'd finish whatever current scene, and maybe I'd go and play the next scene, or maybe I'd go to bed, you know. So I was kind of playing it before bed every night. But yeah, it's really good. I would actually recommend playing it. Obviously, if you're a Star Trek fan, I'd recommend playing it. But even if you're just a fan of like just Telltale style games, I think this is, ignoring the actual quality of the game, like the actual final product, the story being told here, like that kind of what Telltale was really well known for, is here, and that shows in the game. So that experience is there. So yeah, I definitely recommend playing it.
Okay.
And it's gone over pretty well with fans too. It's actually the only Star Trek thing that's come out in like recent memory that's actually gone over well with fans. So
crazy.
Yeah, I know, it's right. It's wild. So yeah, there was that. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, Lewin.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to talk about it too much just because of spoilers, because I'm hoping you get to experience it. But it's finally happened. It's out after like months of waiting. I finally watched Resident Evil Death Island.
Very nice.
Very, very happy about that fact.
Does Claire hook up with Leon? That's all I want to know.
No.
God damn it.
No one hooks up with anyone.
True Resident Evil fashion.
Yes, the Redfield bloodline is not continued here. What is interesting, though, is this film, as we know, Jill is the main character of this movie. Very much the reason why I was very much hyped for this movie. And this is just great. It's a great, great story. It is very much focused on Jill. Like, Jill is very clear. Like, when you watch this film, she is very clearly the protagonist, because outside of a couple of scenes, like, it's pretty much all from her perspective for most of it. But I think it was absolutely genius pairing her and Leon together. Because in the movie, I'm going to be real with you, Chris and Claire don't really do a hell of a lot in this movie.
Okay.
For most of it, they're just kind of there. Like, Claire's kind of the one that kind of gets the plot going, but, like, once they're kind of all at Alcatraz, they have, like, a couple, like, they're kind of paired off. So, like, Chris and Claire will be paired off together, and then Jill runs into Leon in the sewers, as you do. Leon's like attacking Jill with a knife or whatever, and then they kind of grab the knife, and then they're like, they look at each other and they're like, oh shit, you're Leon Kennedy. Oh my god, it's Jill Valentine. And they're like, wow. It's like, oh, wow, what are you doing here? So they very clearly know each other.
As if Leon would recognize Jill from the 90s. With the exact same appearance.
It's not like she's gonna look any different even when she's older. Like, she's still gonna look the same. Like, fucking Leon looks the same. But I think it's a good pairing. I think it works really well. They're kind of paired together for most of the film, while Chris and Claire are kind of doing their own thing. But then there comes to a point in the film where Chris, Leon, and Claire are kind of out of commission for a bit. And so, like, they kind of sideline them out of the commission for a bit just to focus on Jill, which I really like broody Jill at the start of this film. And I wish we got more of that. That would have been fun. But the villain's pretty good as well, I'd say. Like, for these animated movies especially, the villain is not too bad. Okay. Usually the villains for these animated movies are very, like...
forgettable.
Yeah, forgettable and one-dimensional. I like that they this time Dylan, who's the bad guy, they tried to give him a bit of depth. He was there at the Raccoon City incident, and they have some flashbacks with him, and they try to give him a bit of depth, which is really cool. I would say next to Jill, Leon is the other main character of this movie, because of course he is, it's Leon. But also he has some leftover stuff from the last film to kind of deal with and sort out as well, so it does make sense why Leon would be the other kind of like main character. So yeah, if you haven't seen Vendetta, some of this film is not going to make sense.
I have seen all 4 of the animated, so I should be okay.
The film is very much focused on Jill for most of it, and her story, and kind of like just her getting back in. Yeah, she does have her same appearance as RE3, but I am also going to sit here and argue and say that, to be fair, the director of the film has actually come out and said that that was a Capcom mandated thing. Like, Capcom were very much like, no, we want her to look like she does in Resident Evil 3. So obviously we know the story reason behind it. Jill's aging has been slowed down, blah, 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 whatever. You know, a lot of people like to complain that they've just taken the model of RE3, and you're like, they haven't. They've made a whole new 3D model of Sasha Zatova for this. And in a lot of shots in this movie, she does visibly look older than RE3 Jill. So it's not like she's exactly the same. So yeah, I don't know. I think she looks great in this movie, actually. I think all the models look great, actually. I really like the CG models. I've always found the movie's version of Chris to be weird.
Yeah.
I think it's just because I'm so used to how Chris looks in the games, and also so used to how Chris looks in RE8, that like the Chris that appears in Vendetta and this movie just doesn't look right to me. But it also doesn't look like completely wrong like in Resident Evil 7.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The only other thing, I don't want to spoil too much or anything of the movie, because it's actually a good watch. I will say it's very different to the other animated movies. I haven't seen Damnation, but I have seen Degeneration and Vendetta, and from memory, yeah, both of those movies are very ridiculous action-focused. In terms of, like, the action that's there is very over the top and very kind of, like, unrealistically stylized.
Yep.
This film is very different to that. It's
That's
very
good.
different. It's kind of like a blend of what Infinite Darkness was and what, like, Vendetta was. It's kind of like a blend of both. Like, there's action in the movie, but there's not as much of it. And the action that is there isn't that ridiculous. You know, it's pretty, like, standard Resident Evil kind of action. It's not like Chris and the other guy running around a rooftop shooting semi-automatic pistols at each other and somehow missing. But yeah, there's a few action scenes, but this film is very much focused more on, like, plot and character, and it's kind of slower paced as well. It's, like, got a slower pace to it. Like, there are some quick action set pieces throughout, but yeah, it starts with a big action set piece with Leon on a bike on a highway. That's like a whole thing. But it is very much more focused on, like, the plot and the characters, and, you know, and I think the reason why it is because I think they know that this is a big deal. Like, having all these characters together for once is a big deal. So I think that's why they choose to focus it so much more on the character work and scenes between all the characters. And they all have some good interactions, and they all have, like, times to shine and stuff. But yeah, it is very much Jill's movie. 100%.
That's good to hear, actually. I'm excited about that more.
So it's a definite recommend watch. I'm actually going to rewatch it soon. I want to watch it again because I enjoyed it so much. Obviously, being the Jill
Stan that you are.
I am. Yeah, obviously. I was always going to like this movie regardless. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a much higher standard of quality of writing to what I've come to expect from these CGI movies. So, and it seems like a lot of the fan base seems to agree. From just the general discussion I've seen on Twitter, it seems like everyone's kind of digging this movie, which is pretty good. Because usually the kind of general opinion on these animated movies is they're fucking bad, and they're like really over the top. All I want to see from them is more movies like this. And for the love of God, please, can the next animated project, at the end of this movie, Leon is like, I am going on a holiday. Could Leon just go on a holiday, please? Can we focus on literally anyone else? Please. For fuck's sake. Bring him back in RE9, though. I think, you know what? After this movie, I am very much a fan of let's have a Leon and Jill team up in a game. I think that'll be fun. I want more of that. Let's do that.
It would make sense given that, you know, the last 3 games they released that weren't even winters were both Jill and Leon. It perfectly preps for this moment.
Exactly. I think they should have a team up. I think RE9 should be... I'd like to see Claire back as well, because we haven't seen Claire for a good long while now. So I think maybe if this movie is teasing anything, maybe that's what we can maybe expect in coming games. Maybe it's going to involve kind of more all of them.
I would like a final send-off for the original cast, honestly, and then go with random new characters.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. They've opened the door for Jill to just be around for as long as they want Jill to be around for now, because now she just is older than... Like, she's the same age as all of them, but doesn't visibly age like the rest of them do, so... I wouldn't be surprised if years down the line we got, like old Chris and all that, but Jill still looks like what she does in RE3. Hey, man, if you've got a good Jill model, fucking
just
use it.
Although... Yeah.
I do like the concept art, though. I wish she had longer hair. I wish they didn't give her RE3 hair. I liked the longer hair had. And on the Blu-ray, they've actually got concept art of her with, like, longer hair but blonde hair as well. All I'm saying is Resident Evil Death Island is good, and I enjoyed it. And even if it was bad, I would still enjoy it, because Jill is back. We got Nicole Tompkins as Jill. What more do you need? Yeah, it kind of... And then, of course, you have right at the end of the movie, you have your big team up, and, you know, this is meant to be like the Avengers of Resident Evil, and you definitely get that. Like, you definitely have this big team up with Jill, Leon, Chris, Claire, and Rebecca, all at the end, fighting a big fucking monster. Which, by the way, this big monster doesn't have big googly eyes.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty cool. The big monster's kind of like a fish thing. It's kind of weird. It's
Nemesis
interesting.
Form 2.
But yeah, that's kind of it for this episode. That's kind of just a bit of a catch-up episode this episode, though. And just kind of seeing what's what, seeing how we're doing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Next episode, look, we're not going to be able to talk about Ahsoka for a while. That starts next month, though. Very excited for that. But that's going to be releasing week by week. Can you believe it?
I can. That's
Yuck.
how Mando went.
But I'm excited for it. But yeah, because it's releasing week by week, there's not really going to be a lot of reason to talk about it.
Yeah.
Our next episode will be the next of our Doctor Who specials for the year. So that'll be next. And then I don't know which order we're going to do things in. We'll figure it out as we go along. That's what I say.
It's a good example to live by at this point.
Anyway, we are both really tired, it seems. So
Yes.
Let's wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode. Bit of an irregular episode, but I also feel like it's also going to be the last regular episode. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And yeah, Lewin, take us out.
Yeah, all of the above, as always. Catch you on the flip side. We'll see you next time.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
Flip. Adios.